Listen to this episode if you are struggling to get traction with content for your business and you want to know how to fix it. This episode is for the person who is posting and being consistent on social media, yet they just aren't seeing the results from all of their efforts. They're feeling like the algorithm is against them. They sit down to create, they don't really know what to even change to make the difference and to finally start seeing that traction and those results. You're probably sitting there like sticking to, I know I need to be consistent. And so you just keep on being consistent, but you are inconsistently getting results. You're like, what the heck is going on? I really want some traction and you just don't know how to solve it. Today, I want to cover the biggest mistakes that I see people making on social media and really what should you be doing instead. And then I'm also giving you, if you don't take anything else from this episode, what is the one major thing I want you to change with your content today? We're going to be giving you that at the end as well. This is one of my favorite topics. Today's a Saturday. I never work on Saturdays, but I was like, you know what? I feel like talking about content for like 30 to 45 minutes with my gals. And so that is what we are doing today. I just want to take a second that if you are brand new here, hello, welcome. My name is Madison Page. I am the host of the Small Business Growth Podcast. Here we like to teach in a fun conversational type of way. I like to say it's kind of like sipping coffee with a biz bestie. And in case you haven't heard, we have launched a completely free podcast community so we can make this a two-way street. And we really do get to sip coffee with each other. This is called the Small Business Cafe. If you want to join us and get your questions answered, have support from a really awesome community of other small business owners, as well as dive deeper into every single topic that we cover on the podcast, you can click the link in the show notes and join. I can't wait to see you inside. Without further ado, let's dive into the mistakes you might be making in your content. Now, these are things that I see every single day. Honestly, if you come to me and you're saying, Maddie, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, I can go to your social in about 5 to 10 seconds. If I see some of these pieces, I already know that you probably are struggling with this. When people reach out to me and they're like, Maddie, this is what I'm seeing, I take a peek at your content and I can already see if you have some of these are usually the reason why your content is struggling to gain traction. And I can say that because the content that performs well really isn't random. I see it time and time again. It is a framework. It is like a formula that you can follow in order to see some results. And so I really want to dive into these one by one. What is the major mistake and what can you do instead? First things first is focusing too much on your product. So if you're new here, I talk mostly to product-based business owners, and I work with a lot of e-commerce, startup, product-based, handmade, product-based businesses. And so on social media, people are not actually following you to see ads day after day after day. People are following you on social media to be inspired, to be educated, to share a value, to see your meaning, and to really show and be inspired by the aesthetics of what you have. So if all you're doing is talking about your product, showing your product, and just saying, look at how great my product is, go and buy it, talking about your product in every single post, saying, hey, support me, look at me making these, here's the behind the scenes content of me making my product, and you're making every single post about your product and why they should go and buy it, people probably aren't following, they probably aren't engaging, they probably aren't liking it because that's not why they are on social media. They're not on social media to just see products and see advertisements. That used to work a long time ago because there were fewer advertisements on social, but now that every influencer is trying to sell them a product, ad spend is higher than ever. The amount of ads in a scroll is higher than ever. If they really feel like this content is just like a pseudo ad, they will swipe right away. And so if you're talking too much about your product, you need to have variety. Why would they actually want to stick around? Why would they want to be a part of your community? You have to think of your social media profile as a community and what would make them want to stay there. They have to learn something. They have to be inspired by something. You have to give them some sort of value in order to make them want to stick around. This is why I preach variety in your content, because if your content is constantly watch me make this pair of earrings or look at this really cute outfit that I'm selling, or let me reveal my art to you, or whatever that might be. If that is consistently what your content is, all they're seeing is, okay, she's selling to me. Okay, they're selling to me. Okay, they're selling to me. Okay, they're selling to me. And if they even see one post that they love and then they go to your profile and they scroll on your home, on your feed and on your reels, whatever the last content that you've been posting, and again, all you're doing is talking about their products, there's no motivation for them to want to stick around. Why would they want to stick around if they're just going to add more ads into their scroll? Think about the people that you follow. Think about the businesses that you follow. Why do you follow them? Because they have a signature series that is teaching them something, because they inspire you on how they're going to utilize X, Y, and Z in your day-to-day life, because they're teaching you about something else. They are allowing you to gain some information or actually enjoy the content that they're seeing. You need to do that too, because consumers in this day and age can't just see product-based content. Your product doesn't even need to be the focal point or mentioned in every single piece of content, and frankly, it shouldn't. The next one is that you post the same content over and over again. I see this happen a lot with people that had really good luck in like 2018, 19, 20, 21, where they basically found one piece of content that works really, really well, and it got them traction, it got them growth, but then they kind of plateaued, and now they have the audience or they have the people there, but they keep on posting that content. However, that content is tired now to your audience. Again, kind of going back to that first one, people are on social media to consume and be inspired. What used to work doesn't mean that if you find one video that used to work or that works for you, that should be the only piece of content you're posting, because it probably only achieves one major result, whether that is growing, nurturing, or selling. And so if you post the same content over and over again, people kind of get numb to it. Think about if I had every single podcast episode, I was talking about the exact same topic. Would you continue to listen? If I had every single podcast episode be this topic where I was talking about content, the mistakes, and why you're talking about your product too much, would you consistently tune in? Would you consistently want to stick around? No, because you're here to learn. You're here to get variety. You're here to learn something new. And if you consistently talk to the same exact topic, if you consistently do the exact same thing, people will get tired of it. They'll get numb to it, and they honestly won't even see it. Eventually, their brain will like block it out as if it's not even a new piece of content. You need some variety in what you're talking about. The next one is you don't have a known mission or message behind your brand. Too many people, again, are just pushing product. What we need is we need emotion, we need message, we need mission, and we need your audience to fully understand it. Again, when people come to your social and they're stalking, they see one video they like, they click on your profile, and they're just stalking the rest of your content, they should be able to see the values that your brand stands for. What is the mission that you have? What is the why behind building your business? Because the why is what attracts people. It's what people say, oh my gosh, this is a brand that I want to stand by. We are seeing this with Gen Z, with Gen Alpha, and young millennials. They care much more about the value of the brand, the mission behind the brand, than anything else. It is only going to grow. People need to know the value and the meaning behind your business. So even if you have a product that doesn't seem to have a specific value or specific meaning, you have to create this. I have a lot of podcast episodes about this. You just can't talk strictly about your product and why they need to buy your product. If you couldn't speak about the features of your product, the pattern, the use of it, the colors, the new style, if you couldn't speak about those things, how would you sell? What are the ways that you could sell your product right now? And if you don't have an answer to that, we need to dig deeper into the message and the meaning behind your brand. How are they going to feel when they use it? How is it going to integrate into their life? And what is the emotion and the inspiration behind actually creating this? This is called building brand. This is called building a brand, because every brand out there has a little different value to it. They have a meaning. It makes them feel something when they utilize it, because they know what your brand stands for. I want you to think right now, why did people choose Stanley over all of these other cups that you can get out there? Now there's Simply Modern, there's dupes at Amazon, there's dupes at Walmart, the Hydro Flask, all of them now now have the dupe of the Stanley, and the Stanleys being $40, $50, whatever they are. There are so many out there that are $15, $20. So why did people still choose Stanley? It wasn't because their colors were that much better. It wasn't because the technology was that much better. All of these other brands had the exact same thing. They chose Stanley because of the brand. They chose Stanley because how they are going to feel by carrying that Stanley around, how they are going to feel by choosing Stanley over everybody else. The Stanley craze was because people wanted Stanley. The names have become, it's almost like Google, like Stanley is almost like a noun for an insulated cup like that. Let me grab my Stanley. I've heard people say that about a cup that isn't even a Stanley. Why? Because Stanley is the go-to. It's like that status symbol that it has, or it's whatever it means to somebody to have a Stanley. So if you don't have a known mission or a known message or creating some sort of feeling behind your brand and not just your product, people don't really know what they're standing behind. They don't know their value there. Really one of the major signs that I know your social is probably not converting, you're probably struggling to gain traction, is because every single piece of content is just like, here's my product, look at how cute this is, look at this new pattern, look at this new color, we're releasing this new thing, and it's just all incredibly product focused. You need to actually spend more time building brand because the products will sell themselves. It's just like how Stanley now has all of these coffee cups. They have all of these other different styles of cups and different things that you can buy, the koozies, the all sorts of things. It's because they now have a brand. They now have so much rapport. They now have so much authority that people will buy whatever it is. They don't even care what it is. People just know that they are supporting something good because of the Stanley brand behind it. That is what we are trying to create for you. And so is your brand for moms who are busy and you're trying to support X, Y, and Z? Is your brand for people that are trying to bring their favorite memories into their home and how they're going to do that? What is your brand? Is your brand just to really provide an aesthetic for somebody and help them with their self-expression? That is all really, really important pieces that need to be in your branding. The next one is that your text actually kind of overwhelms them. I see this a lot, and I'm not somebody that thinks that aesthetics are dead by any means. Aesthetics absolutely do still have to be there. 90% of people are visually motivated, 75% of content. The first initial hook that hooks people in is visuals. I just want you to think about a piece of content that is dark and dreary and the actual quality of the video is kind of blurry. Then I want you to think about a content that has really crisp lighting and it just looks professional. Which one of those would you rather watch? Now that doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect to a T, and that isn't even the overall message here. What I'm saying is 90% of people are visual, so we have to use aesthetics in order to call them in. I see a lot of people that have videos that are actually kind of overwhelming. It has a ton of text on the screen. You have big blocks and they're not really worried about the overall aesthetic behind it. People are on social media to decompress. People are on social media to kind of remove themselves from everyday life. If you think about how people are consuming, this is something I like to ask myself when I'm creating content all the time. How is my ideal customer consuming, and what are they on social media for? Most people aren't on social media thinking they are going to find business advice. Most people aren't on social media wanting to be overwhelmed with all of this other content. They're on social media to decompress, kind of shut out the world and scroll, or they're on social media to fill time and fill gaps and kind of be in the in-between. Maybe they're standing in line at a Starbucks or whatever. And so we don't want content that is going to overwhelm them. And that most of the time comes down to having a ton of text on your screen, having a bunch of movement. Maybe you're carrying your phone and you're wiggling it around. That makes people kind of nauseous. One thing that I definitely see is that there isn't this aesthetically pleasing context to it. And not every video has to be perfectly aesthetically pleasing. Not every video has to be professionally created or crafted. Not every video needs those major elements. I'm just saying that it should be simple. It can be minimal. You can have text on the screen, but it should be a hook. You should reserve kind of those really busy text heavy posts for carousels or something a little bit more simple. I see this a lot on, it's just big paragraphs of text or something along text that's flashing and moving, which there's a time and place for it. But every single video, again, if people are going to your profile and scrolling through your content, how are they feeling? Are they feeling what even is is this product? Are they feeling like, what is this person selling? Are they feeling like, holy cow, this is like a lot of information? Or do they have a good balance of like, all right, let's educate. All right, let's inspire. All right, let's just create aesthetics here. Again, a major message and a major theme behind everything that I'm saying today is variety. You need variety in mediums. You need variety in simple versus educational. You need variety in aesthetics. You need variety in topics because people's attention spans are low. People get sick of the same content over and over again. So you have to kind of get in the mindset of having variety. This is why I teach 7 types of content. And in those 7 types of content, you can do each of them in a couple of different ways because you need variety in what you're doing. People get sick of seeing the same thing over and over again. So a major piece that we have to work on is creating content that is just like appealing to the eye to watch, that isn't overwhelming, that is kind of like a peaceful addition to their scroll. Again, unless that's not your brand, we can always talk about kind of some different varieties in that. But a big thing is if your video is actually overwhelming them, it can't be like overstimulating. Next is a big one, and I don't really want to call you out on this. I know that social media it's literally a part-time job. I say this to my clients all the time, is I'm saying, I understand that social media is people's full-time job. Some brands have many people just managing their social media. So I understand that if you are a solopreneur, you are building your own business, and this isn't your full-time job to run a social media platform, that sometimes you're kind of like, I want to wash my hands of it. Let me just done is better than perfect. Done is better than okay. But I really want to say a major mistake that I see is that I can tell the content you're creating is what is quick and easy for you, not actually the quality and uniqueness that you really could be crafting. Now, I hold your hand while I say this because I don't want this to feel like I'm attacking you. Again, I understand you're busy. You are so busy, especially if you are a solopreneur, you're a mom, you're working a 9 to 5. You guys have a lot on your plate. I'm right there with you. We all have a lot on your plate. There's a lot of different things. Everybody would call themselves quote unquote busy. However, social media is the home of your business. For a lot of you, especially if you're trying to grow your business, social media is the home of your community. It's how new people are finding you. It's how people are buying. I look at people's analytics all the time and how many of these people are coming directly from social media. How many of these sales are actually converting in a launch directly from Instagram stories, and you choosing the content that is easiest for you to create because you just have photos, you don't have time to take videos, or it's easiest for you just to use a B-roll video over and over again, or you're using the same 6 videos over and over again. I understand those are the easiest for you to create, but is it actually the most effective? Is it actually what is going to call people in? Is it actually what is going to work out? Now, for me, the content that honestly performs the best on my profile is B-roll lifestyle content. So a lot of times, if you scroll on my Instagram, you will see a mix of podcast clips, just like what you're watching right now, with some sort of B-roll video of something that I'm doing throughout my day-to-day. And is that the hardest content to create? Absolutely not. However, it does mean that I need an endless flow of B-roll. I have a tripod out in my house at pretty much all times. If I'm doing something, I put it up and I take a quick little video. If I'm out for a hike, if I'm cross-country skiing, I do just take 7 to 10 seconds and I have a long library of content that people can choose from, that I can pick from. So a lot of times when I sit down to create content, it's not like me being like, shoot, I got to make this video. I got to figure out some sort of quality content to create right now. I need to actually make this. I have so much of it built up. So there's ways to do this. It doesn't have to be like overly time consuming. I absolutely recommend batch creating content throughout your week so you have a bunch of different videos. My storage on my phone is an absolute mess, so full at all times. Thank you, iCloud. But it is something that is necessary and makes my life easier. I want to have quality content. This can also be, if you're talking face to cam, it can't just be something that is just like whipped together. Content is something that does have a flow to it, and there's a lot of ways to make it easier, and it's something that I talk about all the time, but I would honestly rather you post 3 times a week really quality content that takes you 20 to 30 minutes to create versus you posting 7 days a week of just like short and snappy and like something that is just clearly thrown together. Again, content does, the visuals matter, all of it kind of matters. And so there's a piece of it for just putting content out there. Done is better than perfect. Don't let your perfectionism like stop you from posting. And there's also the piece of it is we do need to post quality. We do need to share values. We do need to educate people, inspire people, share that aesthetics behind it. If you look at your favorite brand on social media, do you think they're just whipping up what's easiest? The content you're consuming, what is the content you love to consume? Do you feel like that content is the quickest and easiest content for people to create? Or is there a lot of time that goes into this? If that's something that you've been wanting to do is create content that is very much so quality and curated, take this as your sign that it absolutely does work. Absolutely. And again, you can batch the content. One more, and then we'll dive in to the major change if you do nothing else in your business. This last one is thinking of every single piece of content having the exact same purpose. This is just absolutely not the case. Your Instagram stories versus your Instagram feed versus your emails all have a different purpose within the buying cycle. I think a lot of people are just like trying to push content everywhere. People are just trying to like push this idea of like, here's my content, go and buy it. You see this like concept of you should always be selling everywhere, where yes, that's the case. You should always be marketing. Feel free to put your content out there. Feel free to show your product. However, that doesn't mean that your feed content has the same purpose as your story content. I want you to think about that. Who's seeing your feed content? Mostly non-followers. What is our feed content for? Our feed content is hoping to get organic reach and get out to new people. So those people have never made contact with your brand before. Those people have never had a first impression. Every piece of content you put out there is a first impression of your brand to a lot of people, which is very different than Instagram stories. Instagram stories can feel like a FaceTime with a bestie. They know a lot about you. They've followed you. They watch what goes on in your day-to-day. Your content on your stories is not for new organic people. It's for people that really know and understand you, meaning your messaging can be very different in those two places. And the overall goal behind your feed and your stories is also very different. This might be a good topic for a full episode. If it is, let me know. Feel free to DM me. I love when you're like, hey, Maddie, I loved this point that you made. Could you elaborate? Please reach out on my Instagram at This Is Madison Page and hear what your questions are on this topic. But there is a major difference between feed and stories and email, and whether it's TikToks or whatever. You can't just think of every piece of content as pointing, okay, I want every single piece of content I'm putting out there to be selling, to make sales. Why? Because people are getting too smart on social media. People on social media right now know when they're being sold to. We have such a selling radar because everybody on TikTok is selling. TikTok shop videos are everywhere. Every influencer is trying to sell to us. There are businesses all over the place. And so what you need to be doing is something different than that. You need to be creating an ecosystem that people want to come back to and really nurture them into a community. If you are just strictly selling, again, going back to how we started, people are not going to want to be buying. So some major themes here before we get into the one major change I want you to make literally this week. Some major themes that we're seeing here is variety in content being necessary. We need to have variety to hold people's interest. Another one, value in content. Why would people stick around? I want you to ask yourself the next time you're planning content is, why would somebody want to follow you? Why would somebody want to stick around? What content are you providing them? What value are you providing them on a day-to-day basis on your social media? And what would actually make them want to stick around? And if you can't answer that right now, we have to come up with some sort of educational piece, some sort of signature series, some sort of inspiration, value. And a lot of times it means that you probably don't have that major message, that major meaning, that major brand really created. Again, another major theme is that you need something deeper behind your content than just look at my product, go and buy it. Look at how cute this is, go and buy it. This is the new it girl X, Y, and Z, go and buy it. This lip balm is great. great. This lip gloss is great. This skincare is great. If you cannot answer the question, how are you selling if you could not talk about your product or the features that it has? If you don't know how to do that, you don't have a solid understanding of content marketing. You don't have a solid variety in your content, and we need to add some of that in. So last but not least, you've gotten here, however many minutes this is, however many minutes deep into it. I congratulate you from listening to all of those mistakes. Now, if you already are seeing something that feels like, okay, Maddie, I'm going to work on this literally this week, that's awesome. But I want you to make one major change today. You know, I'm all about giving you tangible, tactical knowledge that you can really go out and like have some action items at the end of every episode. To the major change I want you to make, that if you are not planning your content at the very least weekly, that you have no content calendar that you are creating, you are just winging it day of. You're waking up and all of a sudden it's 2 p.m. and you're like, shoot, I haven't posted today. Let me go and take a short little video and come up with something to put out there. If you are doing that today, this week is the last week you are allowing yourself to do that. Not planning is basically like just willy-nilly pulling something out of the hat every single day. There's no flow to it. You aren't really sure there just isn't any actual process there, and you are doing yourself a major disservice. I feel this in my business, my client's business. Literally, just if you start creating a content calendar where you sit down, and you know, I'm a huge advocate for my Sunday evening power hours. I set aside 1 hour on Sunday nights where I plan my whole week. I kind of put down everything I want to focus on, and I do a full Sunday evening power hour. I have a full podcast episode out there on it, but I sit down and I plan out my content for the week. I make sure that my podcast episodes and what I'm talking about on my social, all of it has strategy, all of it has a flow. Why are you posting these things? What are you hoping to get out of it? What phase of the buying cycle of your followers are your followers in? And if you can't answer those questions, we have to gain the answers to it. I know so many people are winging their social media because I hear it literally every day. If I had $1 for every time somebody was in my DMs like, Maddie, I'm struggling to grow my business, and I say, great, what are you doing right now? Let's get to the bottom of it. And you're like, I have literally no idea. And there's no hate to that. I applaud you for just doing the thing despite not really knowing what you're doing. That's incredible and it's admirable. But if you are really wanting to be the next disruptive brand, you are wanting to be the next like it girl brand for your industry, you really want to be that brand on Amazon or in stores, in Anthropologie, in Urban Outfitters. I hear it every day. You cannot wing your social media strategy. You have to have a content calendar at the very least, meaning you need to sit down and create what topics you are going to cover at the very least every single day that week, whether it's on your feed, on your stories, in your emails, on your TikTok, on your podcast, on your YouTube, whatever it is. You cannot just willy-nilly pull up a content piece in the morning without looking at what the flow of your content is going to be. And at the very least, I just want you to have the topics down. You can still create the reels of the morning of if you really want to. However, you need to know that your topics that week make sense. You need to know that you are achieving one certain goal by the end of the week and what that really looks like, because at least you know when you're going to create that at a moment you took the literal 6 minutes that this can take you to come up with what this content can be within a flow, within a strategy, within a plan that made sense for the overall goal that you currently have, whether that's growing, whether that's nurturing, whether that's selling, whether that's getting somebody ready for a launch, whether that is doing a collaboration or really trying to create that overall meaning behind your brand. I want you this weekend, whenever you're listening to this episode comes out on a Friday, but whenever you're listening to this, I want you to really think about on Sunday night, let me sit down, and it can be a 10-minute timer, and just plan out the topics you are talking about with these things that we talked about: variety, education, value, meaning, mission, and putting all of that behind your brand, behind the content you're creating, and having a solid calendar, just so you know you sat down for a moment and planned out the topics that you're talking about with the overall intention that you are really going for. You must understand why you you are posting? Absolutely everything. I got a question this week in my Small Business Cafe community of what type of filler content should I be posting? If I'm not selling, if I'm not nurturing, if I'm not talking about my product, what type of filler content should I be posting? And truly, and I know her like intent behind this might not have actually meant like filler content, but there really isn't any filler content. Every single piece of content has one of three purposes: to grow, to nurture, or to sell. And you need to know what the overall purpose is behind the piece of content that you are posting in order to see if it's working, in order to see if it's actually going to produce what you're trying to produce. And so you need to know when you sit down, are you currently growing, nurturing, or selling within your overall marketing? Are you trying, what is this piece of content trying to do? What is the overall result you're trying to get for it? So you must have an understanding of why you are posting what you're posting and have a flow to it, because if you're just growing one day, nurturing the other day, and selling the other day, it doesn't really make sense. So we need to have a solid understanding with a content calendar. And a lot of times, if you're kind of willy-nilly posting, you're winging it, throwing spaghetti at the wall, whatever phrase you want to use for it, a lot of times that means that you're just like picking topics from here or there and kind of pulling something from left field, from first base, from right field, who knows? You're pulling different topics all over the place, and your audience feels kind of that lack of clarity, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Your audience feels the disorganization. I always say lack of clarity that you feel, your audience feels tenfold. The lack of organization you have, your audience and your customers and your community feels that tenfold. So if you feel disorganized, think of how much your audience feels. If you feel like your content is all over the place and you're kind of winging it and you're putting it out there, you're just trying to get it done, your audience feels that tenfold, whether they can tell you that or not. That's how the outcome of it is sharing. Some of the questions that I want you to ask yourself when you're coming up with this is, why are you posting? What are you trying to get out of it? What phase of the buying cycle are you currently in? And why would somebody really want to stick around and watch this piece of content? So this week, if you do nothing else, on Sunday night, I want you to take 1 hour. I want you to brain dump everything in your brain from personal and professional. I want you to map out different content topic ideas of what you're really doing for the week. What is your overall goal for the week? And then looking at a calendar of the next 7 days, what are you talking about on your feed, on your stories, on your email, on your podcast, on your YouTube, on your TikTok, wherever you are posting? I want you to have that mapped out. Done are the days that you are sitting down and you are picking the topic and you're trying to do the whole dang thing all at once. There is too many decisions. You get too much decision fatigue and you aren't able to actually look at that big picture. You know that in that 1 hour on Sunday nights, you're looking big picture, you're looking at the flow, and you're creating content all similar to a certain topic. So your audience can feel that flow and be kind of like, it's almost like herding sheep into one certain topic, because we're trying to grow and then we nurture them and then we sell to them. And so when we're doing that, we want to try to herd them into one area. We're trying to do it all at once and kind of move them through that overall flow. It can't just be, okay, I need to post 3 times a week. You have to have an understanding of what it is. The cadence or the frequency behind how much you're posting doesn't really matter if you don't have this piece, this understanding. I would rather you not post at all than just whip up a post that like hopefully might land with somebody, but like who knows what topic. This is kind of random. So I really want to go through this with you. If you have any questions on this, if you're like, Maddie, how do I know if I'm doing these things, or diving deeper into any of it, we will be fully discussing this inside of the Small Business Cafe, that free community. You can DM me on Instagram, just DM me cafe. I'll send you the link to join us. Otherwise, it is in the show notes below, but you can totally DM me. I'll send you that link and we'll get you inside of that community. We'll be talking about this, discussing it, and really providing you like help as to which one to focus on and answering those questions there. Content is something that is complex, but once you have it, it's really, really easy. This is why a lot of my clients say, my content takes a fraction of the time that it's ever taken, because once you understand how to solve these, and once you really have a flow to it, you have content pillars, you're planning it out, you know what you're talking about, you know what your major mission is, content becomes easy. My content for a week, other than a podcast that takes me 30 to 45 minutes to record and edit and produce, whatever, but my Instagram reels and my stories, I bet takes me less than an hour and a half a week to do a full week's. And that is every single story, every single reel, writing the captions, creating the video. And honestly, an hour and a half is generous. I would say I spend less than an hour a week on overall content, and at least for Instagram. It doesn't take that much time for you to produce a lot of really high quality content. You just need to understand what the overall purpose is behind it. You need to know the meaning. You need to know the elements that really go into it. And so I hope that this was really helpful for you. Please let me know if this is a topic that you would like me to dive into more. If you have any questions, if you want to, we'll be talking about examples, all of that in the cafe. Send me a DM on Instagram that just says cafe, and I'll send you the link and we can join on in that conversation there. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you subscribe. I can see that like 35% of you are not subscribed to the podcast yet. You come back every single week to listen. So if you are an active listener, you love this podcast episode, or you love podcast in general, you love to sip coffee with me, have these hyper conversational business conversations, and leave with actionable results, make sure you hit that follow, the subscribe, and share it with a biz bestie if you'd like. And so you guys can chit chat about it and see what really works for you. DM me on Instagram, cafe, and I will send you the link to join us in the community so you can dive deeper with me on your content mistakes as well, and just have a community of other small business owners. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. Let's get out there, build some brands, disrupt your industry, create some content that is really unique and that really lands with your people and finally starts having you gain traction on your socials.